something within me was telling me things, but I went with what everybody around me was saying. And later I was like, God, I knew it the whole time.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's actually the great cultural crisis.
Something I love about your message in one of our interviews, I deeply remember in one of the interviews we did, you saying something about, the universe is 13 billion years old and there's so much dark matter.
Yes.
Unknown, darkness,
Yes.
scary,
Right.
crazy things, and we would actually not exist without the dark matter.
Isn't that like, scientists are like, basically 4% of the universe is sort of known, and 96% of it, black holes, dark matter, dark energy, and we kind of have a vague sense, even the best scientists are like, we kind of have a sense of what that is. We just know that it's somehow integral to the life of the universe. And then you talk to most of us who have dark matter, regrets, mistakes, things we would have done differently, things we're like, please don't bring that up. And yet, it's the engine of life. It's how you grow, it's how you expand, how your consciousness awakens is generally the tough stuff.
So we need the tough stuff in order to grow, expand, live, and understand what the 4% of beauty is.
Right. Well, think about you're at dinner, you're at a dinner party and there's some guy named Chuck at the end of the table and he's like, I was always pretty awesome. And then I tried some other stuff and I was good at that too. And then I started to branch out and I was pretty sweet at that. Get that guy, right?
Yeah.
Get that guy doesn't. What? So boring.
Yeah.
But this person over here is like, I fell face down 3 times. I lost all my money. I tried some other stuff. Okay, now this is somebody. It's like the ache is actually what draws us to each other.
Or we connect.
Yeah, right.
How does someone in your position who has been a spiritual guide for so many years, and this has been your path, your path and your mission, how does someone like you handle adversity when it comes now? Or do you not even see adversity as actually a bad thing or something that knocks you off track? How do you actually
what a great question.
Stay at a level of grounded spiritual peace when it hits you?
Honestly, now, a good chunk of the time I start smiling. Anger, rage, something where I was like, what was I thinking? Why did I fire off that email? The real art is to witness to it. Oh, look, there's I'm angry, and then there's, oh, look, anger. So the problem is for most people, adversity, they identify, the adversity becomes everything. But the real art of a spiritual vision for life is you're learning how to witness to it. Oh, look, this person gets under my skin.
Why?
In a supernatural way. Mm-hmm. In the book I talk about, so you can just you can have it be parts, division. I want nothing to do with that person because they walk in the room and my blood boils. Or all parts exist within a greater whole. This person is my teacher. So there's some reason why they get under my skin, why they provoke me, why they can just set me off like that. What is it? What are they here to teach me? But yeah, adversity, even this past half year with lockdown, and there are days that are just, what the? I wake up in the morning, take the dog for a walk, and I'm like, what are we?
What's happening in
the
this
whole
world?
Thing, right? Your head is just spinning. So I just go, okay, hold on, take a deep breath, witness to it, and then remember that you'll have everything you need for the day when you need it. The only place you can ever be is here.
Yeah.
The only thing that goes on forever is now.
You can't think about the future too much, yeah.
But adversity, as I noticed recently, somebody mentioned failure, and almost conceptually, I don't know. I sense you have the same thing. Do you even now have the category of failure?
No, we talk about it all the time as feedback.
Right.
It's information that's telling us what we shouldn't be doing or what we could be doing better.
Data.
Yeah, it's information.
And a good story.
Great story.
So
there's no good movie out there. It's just the person's life was amazing. There was no adversary. There was no challenger.
Right.
It's you have to conquer something.
Right.
For it to be a good story. Before we continue this video, make sure to subscribe below and turn on the notification bell right now so you don't miss out on these great videos every single day.
There's this old story in the book of Genesis about Jacob wrestles an angel. Then he gets his hip injured. And the rabbis talk about Jacob walks away limping, but he's experienced the divine.
Why?
So there's like a limp.
Why is he experiencing the divine?
He's wrestled with who he is. In the first time you meet him, he's pretending to be his brother. Who are you? And he gives his brother's name. But then when he wrestles with the divine, I'm Jacob. So actually, if you trace the story, it's somebody becoming comfortable in his own skin. Because when you first meet him, he's trying to be somebody else. And
now he's owning himself.
And now I'm Jacob. And so this path we all go on to learn to be comfortable in your own skin. This is who I am. This is where I'm from. That's why LeBron always says he's from Akron. You got to own every square inch of your story.
Yeah. What happens if we don't own our story?
You got those bits and pieces that you don't know what to do with. Often they haunt the house.
Ooh.
They're present. Anything that doesn't get named or expressed, then it's lurking somewhere. You develop a shadow. So think about any family system, any business, any partnership where there's two columns, things we can talk about and things we can't. The things in the column that we can't talk about, that can't be said, are running the show.
Those are the things you need to be talking about.
Yes, and if they can't be spoken, then they're the shadow, they're the underbelly, they haunt the house, and they actually are running the show.
And that's what's keeping you from what you want, more joy,
Everybody's
love.
agreed not to talk about that. Tell me what you can't talk about, we can diagnose quite quickly the thing.
Why is it so hard for people to talk about the thing they don't want to name? When that's probably the answer.
Right. Yeah, the terror of could we speak that and be okay? Could we face that and it wouldn't blow things to pieces? Yeah, it might. It might. The truth might get spoken and the current structure and arrangement might be blasted to pieces.
But at least you'll be free.
You'd be free. So which
you want freedom?
Would you like?
And potential chaos of blowing up the system?
Right.
Or
you can't have new creation without a disruption of the current creation. So like in America right now, we need to police ourselves in new and better ways. Greater community responsibility. Less brutality, obviously. But to police ourselves in a better way, there will have to be a disruption in the way that we currently understand what we mean by policing.
Yeah.
Because it's not working.
Right.
And generally, somebody somewhere has a vested interest in the current arrangement. Like, people generally don't understand things if their paycheck is dependent on them not understanding it.
Right.
So yeah, for there to be new creation, there'll probably have to be some sort of disruption of the present creation, which always has a structure, which always has somebody with a vested interest. Power, money is probably lurking. Yeah, so in some ways, the work that we do is helping people, like, it's okay. It's okay. You can speak the thing, you can say it, you can name it. Yeah, it might be blown to shreds, but on the other side, you'll be free.
Peace.
It'll be so much better.
What are the questions all humans should be asking themselves during a time like this of uncertainty, of chaos, of I'm not sure what's going to happen, of information overload, when we don't even know where tomorrow will bring us?
Right.
We don't even know if we're going to have our jobs and health and scariness. Right. What are the questions we should ask ourselves about life, God, why we're here?
Yeah. The first thing is, what new creation is waiting to be birthed in this? So you think about, like, America spends twice as much on healthcare as other first world countries, and our healthcare is way worse. So, and most personal bankruptcies are rooted in a healthcare system doesn't work. So everything is spiritual, but this is all spiritual. How do we what does health look like, and the way that we've arranged ourselves.
Yeah.
So you can see it all as this thing isn't working, but if you immediately have that, this thing isn't working, okay, well then how should we arrange it? So grief and imagination have a long-standing relationship, because grief is loss. And anytime you're losing something, anytime there's grief, which is loss, that's always where the seeds of imagination are hiding. This thing is passing away. Well, then by default, we're going to have to cook up something new. So you can see it, especially in the ancient tradition, anytime there's grief, that's always the moment to keep your eyes peeled, because this is always where the imagination begins to arise.
Yeah.
Well, if that thing's gone, well, how would we do it if we had to start over? So I think that's the number one question right now. Are there better ways for education? Think of all the things that aren't working like they used to. And you can see that disorientation as terrifying. And
Well, what's interesting is it's typically hard for a lot of people to make a change in their life without a near-death experience,
Yes,
without a sickness, a cancer scare, someone in the family close to them dying, a divorce, a death of something.
Yes.
Well, for us to say, this isn't working for me, I've got to start eating better. I got fired from my job. You know what? I didn't like it there anyways. Like, what do I really want?
It was weirdly a gift that they let. Yeah.
So it's almost like, since the world hasn't been able to make the change on its own, it's being forced to change in a drastic and uncomfortable, painful way.
Yes. When I started out, like 24, 25, I started out as a pastor. And so the job was basically walking with people through the awful stuff of life. The good stuff, weddings, but funerals. Hospital.
You were the one showing up at the hospital, at the home,
and I wasn't even prepared for this. The job of the pastor is somebody calls and is like, my dad just got sent to prison. We need somebody with an official credential because none of us can get in to visit him right now. Could you please go visit him because he hasn't had any visitors? Okay. So especially in the beginning, my mantra was, I'll go anywhere. I'll talk to anybody. But what happened is I would end up, the 16-year-old hung himself, and now I'm in the hospital room with his family. I'm standing over the casket with this guy, and his wife is in the casket, and this is the woman he's been with for 50 years. I mean, and I'm like 25, 26. But what I kept noticing is I would see the person in the lowest moment, but then I'd see them a month later, 6 months later, 12 months later, and I would watch how some people got smaller. It's almost like their soul constricted. They became bitter. Life owes me. Stuck back there. But then most people, which I didn't see coming, most people, it took them to these new places they never would have gone.
Breakthroughs.
Big, wide, expansive. And then I would notice people would say things to me like, they'd say, that was a hell on earth. You were with me in that time. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And yet now, if I hadn't have gone through that, I can't imagine where I would be.
Right. It's almost like we need those things.
Oh, it was so weird because they would say things like, honestly now, and you could see the word on the tip of their tongue was grateful. They'd be like, I'm honestly kind of, I can't say grateful, but that's actually the word, but it feels so counterintuitive. And yet, so right away, like my late 20s, there's something upside down about the whole way this thing works. And all of the endless striving to win, be successful, make a bunch of money, have everybody, okay, fine, yeah, that's great. But the actual game that you really want to be playing is like upside down.
Yeah.
It works so differently than everybody was taught.
What's the game we should be playing?
Well, what's interesting is how many people have a deep knowing. So they would be like, my job isn't working out. I don't feel like my life is where it's supposed to be. And just a couple of questions in, instantly, I'd say, do you think that, or are you reading off someone else's script? Or even inviting people, please don't tell me what you think. Tell me what sits on top of your heart. And to this day, a lot of the work I do is just inviting people Because soul knows, heart knows. Mind chatters, it compares, it's envious, it's jealous. Your mind is all over the place. It's like looking at so-and-so's Instagram followers. It's lovely, it's also a wreck.
Yeah.
But the amount of times when you sit in silence or you create a space where somebody can listen for the real thing, I'll often invite people to sink down into heart. And the person knows instantly, oh, that direction, that person, that job. So there's like a deep knowing that all human beings have. And the number of people who would say, something within me was telling me things, but I went with what everybody around me was saying. And later I was like, God, I knew it the whole time.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's actually the great cultural crisis.
If you want to learn more about how to master your mind, check out this next video right here.
We're all faced with great opportunities brilliantly disguised as impossible situations, and we are at that point, at that nexus point in our evolution as a species. So then you don't try to fix that. That's never going to work. What you do